Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. We are back. This is State Senator Mallory McMorrow, and we are back from our 2 week legislative break. We were not in session. And one of the things that is kind of nice as somebody who has become a parent is that these breaks do align with spring breaks for school. So even though Noah is not quite that age yet, something that I am now really grateful for as we move forward. So I know that sometimes there's the perception that elected officials just check out when we're not actually in session at the Capitol, and actually it's those blocks where we're not sitting in the Capitol waiting to vote where we get the most done and we're the most productive we can be kind of in our districts and talking about important issues. So just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what we were doing while we were not in Lansing. So I was very honored to be invited down to the University of Notre Dame, my alma mater, to speak to about 100 women students at Notre Dame, along with a really incredible panel of women, one at the CDC, one at Goldman Sachs, one who is an executive at GE, really just about trailblazing. I put that in quotes because it's always a strange thing to say about yourself, but was invited for trailblazing alumni of Notre Dame women at the 50th anniversary of women becoming students at the University of Notre Dame. So that was really wonderful and had a lot of really great questions and comments from students about, I think, a lot of things that all women face in the workforce about work-life balance and how do you take that right step and how are you networking and what do you do against discrimination and misogyny and a lot of the issues are still being talked about. And my hope is that for anybody who is younger than me watching, that you are going to go much farther than we did and really change a lot of how we work to support more people, which is really important. I also went down to South by Southwest down in Texas and was invited by a group, including period.org, to speak on our efforts here in Michigan to repeal the tampon tax, which I was a part of. So I was really glad to share in some of that work and talk particularly to creative professionals and people in kind of advertising and marketing about how even if you're outside of government and politics, that you can volunteer your time and your skills to help spread the word about important issues in a way that sometimes those in government or advocacy aren't always the best at, is that storytelling aspect. So it was a really exciting panel and I was glad to be down there and proud to be invited. I also read to multiple classes for March's Reading Month, including a early childhood education center and a fifth grade class. I spoke at Rochester Community Schools Career Night. Thank you again to Rochester Schools for being flexible with, again, a new parent who could pop in and pop out while my daughter had diaper rash. Ooh, sorry. And attended the groundbreaking ceremony, a long, long time coming, for the World War II Memorial here in Royal Oak at Woodward and 13 Mile. And I believe we shared the story, the coverage that the Free Press did of that event, but they interviewed a few of the World War II veterans. And it was just really, really moving to see how many attended this event. You know, we had veterans who are 100 years old now, and we had a Tuskegee Airman. We had original Rosie the Riveters, you know, women who were rolling up their sleeves and making sure bombers could get into the sky. And it's just really, you know, I'm proud that we were able to have a small part in getting to this moment to help create this space while we still have members of the greatest generation who sacrificed so much for us here with us to be able to take part in it. Since our last live stream on national news, the United States Senate approved the Supreme Court nomination of Associate Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. So that was really, really wonderful to watch. And I don't know if you saw the video of her kind of watching the resulting of the confirmation hearing and just kind of tearing up and taking in the moment and what that meant for her and the role that she is about to take on. But it was really moving to watch. And then finally, on state news, we have to talk about this in the scope of what is happening around the country, where with the potential for Roe versus Wade to fall in the US Supreme Court as the Mississippi lawsuit makes its way up to the Supreme Court. We are now seeing states around the country taking on and signing legislation into law in anticipation of the Supreme Court ruling that I think most people watching this are anticipating that Roe versus Wade will be overturned, in which case the authority will go back to the states. And we're now seeing states across the country pass incredibly restrictive reproductive health policies, making no exception for rape or incest and really putting women and girls into very, very dangerous situations. Here in Michigan, we get asked about this often. So there's actually a 1931 law on the books right now in Michigan that if and when Roe falls, it's a trigger law here in the state of Michigan, where the laws on our books are that providing an abortion is illegal immediately. So the legislature here would not have to pass such restrictive laws because we already have them on the books. So there are a number of things that are being done right now in an effort to protect reproductive health access and rights here in the state of Michigan, including a ballot initiative to codify reproductive rights into the state constitution. Myself and Representative Lori Pohutsky in the House are the lead sponsors on a package of bills called the Reproductive Health Act, which would codify abortion access and reproductive health rights into law via statute. And then last week, Governor Whitmer filed a lawsuit using executive authority to ask the Michigan Supreme Court to immediately resolve whether Michigan's constitution will protect reproductive rights. And that was filed here in the Oakland County Circuit Court. So much more to come, but it's happening, and it's happening fast. And I know that people feel very, very strongly about this issue, but this is a situation where I think people have to be honest about if those who are in the pro-life movement genuinely want to reduce or try to eliminate the number of abortions. We know how to do that. It's access to contraception, it's education, it's making sure that people feel supported and helped. And we have seen that be effective. Actually, the rates of abortion are at the lowest that they have been in decades. And making sure that we're not just fighting for things before a child is born, but also after. How are we providing wraparound service? How are we making sure that parents feel confident and supported and can afford healthcare and all of the things that we know we need? But what outlawing abortion does, and we know this because we've seen this happen throughout history and around the world, is it will kill women and girls. It puts those who are seeking abortions into incredibly dangerous situations. It is not going to stop abortions. And I spoke about this at a rally a few months ago where, you can look up old print ads where Lysol used to be advertised specifically to women to inject into themselves for the purposes of contraception and abortion. And that is where we will likely go back to where it was understood that women were going to need to be able to have authority over their own bodies. And it is just going to create a dangerous situation in the very same way that we have now seen, and I think there's a broad consensus, that the war on drugs did not work. And that's where we need to move forward. So more on that, certainly as we continue moving forward. So I want to jump into some updates from the Capitol and then talk about some just really important issues this week outside of legislation. So a few bills that moved through the Senate this week. Senate Bill 302 is yet another bill to change our election laws, one of the many bills to make it more difficult for people to vote. So I voted against this bill, as I consistently have, and we're happy to share all of the research and data and audits. There have been over 250 audits done on our elections in Michigan. We have paper ballots. So I will consistently stand up against efforts that make it harder for people to vote without the evidence to show that it is necessary. House Bill 4705. This is a bill that would amend the Open Meetings Act to require audio recordings of every meeting in a public body that is a state licensing board, state commission panel, or state rulemaking board. The public bodies would be required to keep their recordings for at least a year and make them accessible to the public through the Freedom of Information Act. This was a bill, I am always on board with increased transparency and accessibility. So there was some opposition to this bill from DTMB and the Department of Civil Rights. And the concerns with this bill were, one, the cost of requiring all of these boards to record and save all of these audio files. And I had asked some of my colleagues if there was any concern. Was there anything in this bill that required specific audio equipment to be used that would make it prohibitively expensive? Or, these days we can all hit record on our phones and save a file to a drive somewhere, and it's relatively cost effective and accessible for everybody. But the Department of Civil Rights wanted to go a step further, in my understanding, and make it even more accessible for people. So rather than just an audio recording, you could understand requiring a full transcript, maybe you're requiring a Braille transcript to be put out. So I voted in favor of this because I do believe that increased transparency is important. And you can also pick up a lot of nuance in an audio file about how things are said that may not necessarily come across in a transcript or meeting notes. So I voted in favor of this. I didn't feel like the arguments opposed to it were enough to vote against it, even if it's just a step and we have to keep going to working towards transparency for the public. Last up, on some bills that moved this week, House Bill 4256. The bill provides similar protections to access to places of public accommodations by service animals in training, as in provided to trained service animals. So this is something that makes a lot of sense to me. If you are training a service animal, and we have a lot of really wonderful, reputable organizations here in our district, Leader Dogs for the Blind being one of them, who are training a service animal, you would want that service animal to be able to experience many of the situations that they will find themselves in when they are working, when they are licensed service dogs. So I voted in favor of that bill, and we will keep you posted on anything there. Before we get into kind of some more of our serious topics for the week, I do want to share good news first. So we are changing the order up a little bit. So starting with the Troy Athens JV and Varsity Winter Guard, our state champions. Congratulations to the Winter Guard on Saturday, April 2nd at Saginaw Valley State University. The JV team, performing their show called From the Gates of Heaven, earned a record-breaking score of 82.555 and were named Scholastic Regional A state champions. So congratulations. The varsity team finished the day by performing their show titled 13, scoring an Athens State final score of 85.225, also winning the title of Scholastic A state champions. Congratulations. Always really exciting when we have state champs coming from our district. Next up, it is that time of the year where we are being introduced to nominees for Teacher of the Year throughout all of our schools, which is always such an exciting time. So we wanted to recognize the three who were named from Royal Oak schools. And this includes teachers from the high school, middle school, and elementary school levels. The award winners were selected from a pool of all of those nominated for recognition by their peers. So that's how this process works, is peers nominate their peer teachers to earn this honor. And we want to recognize Mia Gutierrez, who's an English language arts teacher who won the award at the high school level. Kate Chambers won the award at the middle school, who teaches math and English language arts. And the elementary school teacher of the year is Val McFarlane at Oakland Elementary, where she teaches second grade. Congratulations and thank you to all of our wonderful teachers. Last but certainly not least, this week, Rochester Hills Museum at Van Hoosen Farm is given an award for historic farmstead preservation. And this is such a beautiful space if you haven't gone up to visit the farm. After more than $3.5 million in recent work, the Rochester Hills Museum at Van Hoosen Farm is being recognized for its efforts in preserving the community's rich agricultural past. The Rochester Hills Museum at Van Hoosen Farm recently received the Michigan Barn Preservation Network's 2022 award for historic farmstead preservation. This award, which is one of the network's top honors, is given to an individual or place that best exemplifies their mission of preserving these iconic structures and our rich agricultural past. So, congratulations, and it is a well-deserved honor, certainly. All right. With that, and before we get into Q&A this week, I have to talk about a few things. This was a really hard week in the legislature, and hard for me as I'm watching this trend around the country of people continually being marginalized and targeted because they are different as a way to deflect. So, want to start this week. You may or may not know that in the Senate, each Senate session is opened with an invocation, which is usually given by a sitting senator. We rotate. Everybody has the opportunity to give one if they so choose. I typically share either something that is non-denominational or a poem or something that is trying to set the tone that I hope we have in the chamber, which is of service to the people of Michigan and everybody, and hoping that we, are guided by that responsibility and the trust that everybody has put into us. And it should be, kind of a moment of reflection and tone setting as we enter each session. But we received one that was given by Senator Lana Tice this week, where I walked out, and so did a number of my colleagues, because she, under the guise of prayer, pleaded with God for guidance, because she said that our children are under attack. And she said that our children are under attack by forces that are encouraging them to be or hear or learn things outside of their parents' will. And it was a not thinly veiled attack, and very much in the line of Florida's "Don't Say Gay" bill, and attacks that we've seen on teaching history. We talked earlier a few months ago about Mouse being banned unanimously from a school in the South, and a teacher on a recording feeling pressured to teach both sides of the Holocaust. All of these kinds of attacks under the guise of parental rights is horrifying to me, because it is targeting already marginalized individuals, and we're seeing how this plays out. We are seeing that it is emboldening people to take out their frustration and anger and fear on members of the LGBTQ community, who already are marginalized, who have a 4 times higher rate of suicide attempts than non-LGBTQ peers. And it's just hateful. It's hateful and wrong. And it didn't stop there. So something that also happened in the Senate this week is the Senate majority, which is the GOP right now, moved to reject 2 of the governor's appointments to university boards, which is, not something that is going to impact every single resident of the state. However, one of the appointees that was rejected was John Hoadley to the Western Michigan University board. And want to be clear that he was never given a confirmation hearing, which is typical. It goes to the advice and consent at committee to hear and provide that consent. And that process didn't happen. It was immediately moved to the floor. And the argument given was that John is currently taking some graduate classes at Western, and that would be a conflict of interest. But we had heard rumors that this was coming throughout the week, and I would be remiss if I didn't share that this is the second openly gay appointee that this majority has rejected. There was also Senator Moss, one of my colleagues who is an openly gay state senator, brought up that there is a 30-year-old attorney general opinion that says that it is not a conflict of interest for a university board member to take classes at that institution. And actually, it might be beneficial to have a student, somebody with experience and what that might be like from firsthand to be on a board. But they also didn't even ask John. He wasn't given a chance. And this wasn't just a random person to the legislature. John was a member of the state house for many years and had built a reputation for working across the aisle, for being really well respected and well liked. This is somebody who is passionate, incredibly well qualified. And you would have a hard time convincing me that he was not rejected because he is gay. And it is just a trend that we're seeing, and I serve as the minority vice chair for the Economic Development Committee. And right now we're at a place in Michigan where in 2020, more people died than were born in the state of Michigan for the first time in state history. Our population is not growing. We are one of the oldest states in the country. And we have colleagues bemoaning when we hear news like companies are moving out of state and expanding elsewhere and not investing necessarily in the state of Michigan. And they say that the reason is because we don't have enough tax incentives, that Michigan is not competitive enough and we need to compete with these other states. But then we see all of these efforts that say that unless you are a straight, white, Christian man, really, you're not welcome here. While this may be, something that does not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, you start to see the trend. You see, bills to prevent trans kids, not champions or Olympic athletes, from playing on sports teams. And the Republican governor of Utah actually vetoed a similar bill in Utah. And said very candidly, he said, I may not understand what these kids are going through, but these are kids who are just trying to get through the day, to find friends, to feel like they belong. And never have I seen so much anger and hatred directed towards so few. And in Utah, there was one trans kid playing on a girls' sports team in the entire state. And the legislature there, the Republican legislature, overturned that veto from the governor. And we're seeing that here in Michigan. So, it is hard for me to wrap my head around and support the idea that we can just incentivize our way out of an issue where we have to attract more people to the state of Michigan. We have to encourage people to want to stay in Michigan. Michigan is one of the most diverse states in the country. This is a place where people came to from all around the country and all around the world 100 years ago at the start of the Industrial Revolution for opportunity. We have an incredibly diverse community here in our district with immigrants, the LGBTQ community, Jewish community, Palestinian community. This is what is wonderful about this place. But as we see these efforts to reject people because they might be gay, to target already marginalized individuals and not respond when we had record protests and outcries in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. And here this week, we saw in Grand Rapids that another Black man was killed. And we haven't done anything with it. So my colleagues, Senator Geis and Lyoya this week, spoke really openly about we've had all these efforts on reform to protect Black residents as well. And those haven't moved either. So it's really frustrating for me. It has been a really, really challenging week because, this is where we are. So Senator Tice tweeted today that our kids are under attack by, quote, progressive indoctrination, and that it's taking away parental rights. I'm a parent, and I want this state to be one where my daughter knows that she is supported and seen for whoever she is, and that she is kind and empathetic and meets people who are different than her, and that we're not targeting people because they might be different. So it's been a week. So that's where we're at right now. We're going to post a link to my colleague, Senator Lyoya's speech, which choked me up as well, again, as a parent of a young child. We have to do better in the state, and we can't accept that deflection and scapegoating and hatred is okay, because it is just a way to deflect from the fact that they're not doing any work to make healthcare more affordable, to fix the roads, to bring the cost of gas down. None of these things are improving people's lives, but instead of actually addressing really, really hard issues, the strategy, both nationally and here in the state of Michigan, is to blame and attack and marginalize people who are different in an attempt to dehumanize them, as a way to make you so angry and hateful towards somebody else that you forget that they're not doing anything to help you either, and they don't care about you. And I'm not going to play nice with that anymore. So we wanted to leave some time for that, because I had a lot to say about it that I've been thinking about a lot. I know there's a push, and this is where I usually don't like to get super partisan, but there's a push for some Democrats to just ignore all of this, that it's a false flag, that it is, red meat to get into social issues, and we should really be focusing on economic issues. And my response is, that's bullshit. This is an economic issue, because if we tell everybody who doesn't fit into a neat little box that you're not welcome here, we're not going to have anybody left. And why would we have companies choosing to invest here in the state of Michigan? And I will make that argument every single day if I have to. So with that, we are going to shift into Q&A. There's really no way to change the mood really quickly. So
yeah,
we are.
I was crying in the background.
Yeah, we're gonna get into a few questions. So what questions do we have this week?
Yeah, we have the first one is from Ryan on Facebook. And I think he's asked this question, but it's always good to address it. Where do you and coworkers stand on protecting our medical staff, nurses, doctors, security, the same as we protect police against assaults?
Yeah. So, Ryan, I know you've asked this many times, and there has been legislation that has been introduced to specifically protect medical workers and healthcare workers from assault. The argument, and I think I may have mentioned this before, against that is that there are already laws regarding a tax assault on the books. And is there more of an issue about hospitals underreporting these issues? Is there anything we can do more to strengthen workers' ability to want to or be able to file police reports, to file actual charges? So I know that that's a debate that is happening amongst my colleagues. I think everybody fundamentally agrees we have to do everything possible to protect healthcare workers, teachers, school board members from attacks, especially as we're seeing these attacks on the rise. And it's a question of what is the best way to do that. Is there something right now that is preventing people from filing reports? Is there something that is preventing people from having those followed up on, or does it require legislation that specifically targets individuals who are on the receiving end of more of these attacks? And I don't quite know the answer yet, so I am 100% supportive of whatever is the right move for us to make sure that we are protecting healthcare workers and teachers and election officials and everybody who is seeing this kind of rise in vitriol and physical violence right now. And I want to make sure we get that right. So we'll keep you posted as that moves. That is where sort of the debate has been internally. The bills that have been introduced specifically to protect healthcare workers have not been given a committee hearing yet. So I think this would be a good place to really debate this. And we're happy to write a letter on our behalf or send a note to the committee chair on your behalf, Ryan, and for many others in our district, as I'm sure feel very strongly about this issue as well, to request a hearing so that we can have this debate and make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect our healthcare workers.
Kathleen from Birmingham via our Submit Your Question form asked, the Michigan legislature appropriations previously awarded federal COVID relief. Is there any actually COVID relief in this package? The reason the House Dems killed the latest federal COVID relief appropriations was because they didn't want it to offset by funds states had already received.
Ooh, yeah, Kathleen, that is a big, long question. So, yes, so we just passed a $4.8 billion supplemental that you may have seen a few weeks ago. Now, to clarify, that is not the entire state budget for the year. We are still working through the supplement or the annual budget process. And there are also very likely to be additional supplemental budgets. So, the most recent supplemental finally appropriated most of the remaining American Rescue Plan dollars. It was not all of them. So there are still some American Rescue Plan dollars within the state that need to be appropriated. And then we will still receive the funds from the bipartisan infrastructure plan that will come down to the state. So at every level, when the federal government passes a relief that comes down to the state, there are really kind of specific ways that states can utilize those dollars. So from the federal package, some of the funding is directly related to COVID. So testing, tracing, supplies, PPE, HVAC systems for public places, schools, that sort of thing. And then there's a lot in the relief packages that have been for kind of economic COVID relief. So things like PPP loans and grants for businesses and economic development. And as we saw in the supplemental that we just passed out, that was really focused in the state of Michigan on a lot of water and water protection and infrastructure as we come out of COVID. So it's all together. But to the shortest version of the answer of the question is yes, there were funds in there specifically related to COVID directly and funding outside of that. So the way that it works is kind of the federal government passes, I'm trying to put my hands in the frame, passes money that comes down to the state. There are sort of parameters that we have to follow. So the legislature interprets what we can and can't do with that funding and what makes the most sense for our state. And then that goes into the budget process and then we pass that out. But we are more than happy to share story or coverage of the most recent supplemental so that you can see what's in it.
Yeah, we have a little e-news that I will link in after this.
Okay.
Pretty from Birmingham via our Submit Your Question form, Preeti. How can we re-envision inpatient hospitalization reform, especially for those who go in that are independent and appropriately assertive people?
Preeti, I love this question because it feels like you have experience and a story to share. So because this sounds really specific, this sounds like you're talking about somebody specific or something that you have seen that you think can be better. So rather than me responding right away, I would love for you to share that experience. And if you have an idea for how to improve inpatient hospitalization practices or just really this goes to everybody, any of our constituents, if you have seen something firsthand that you've identified as a problem and you think you have a way that can make things better, not only for you, but if it's something that can make things better for all of us, let us know. That's something that we are here for, is to try to take ideas from constituents and from our community back into the legislature. There are certainly issues and bills that I have in mind that I want to work on. But one of my proudest moments of the past few years has been introducing a bill from a student here in our district, Nisha Singhi, who had a very specific idea and a ton of research that she did with University of Michigan graduate students about balloon debris and plastics, microplastics in our water and the danger that causes to us. So if you've got an idea, let us hear it. We are happy to respond and give you kind of the deep dive or information about what has been done in this space in the past. If we don't know, we're able to put in a research request for that. And then if you have an idea, let us know. If it's something that we are able to champion, if it makes sense, we would love to do that. So I hope, Preeti, that you will follow up and we'll look forward to hearing what your idea is.
All right. I don't see any other questions, so I think that is it for now.
All right. Well, and I think I was scrolling through the questions, do want to always recognize when another elected official has joined us. So thank you, Representative Cynthia A. Johnson from Detroit, for tuning in and joining us today. Very good to see virtually. And I agree, John Hoadley is an awesome human being. with that, Liz, I'm going to let you go. Do you have? I think you mentioned you're cooking this weekend.
Yeah, I'm hosting my family's Easter, so the rest of my afternoon will be tidying up my house and hiding Easter eggs for my nephew to find.
Oh, that's so fun. Well, then I'll let you go
Yeah.
so that you can get to prepping.
Okay.
All right. With that, we know there's so much going on. So, for everybody observing Ramadan, Passover, Easter, whatever it is that you are observing and celebrating or reflecting on this weekend, we hope that it is meaningful. We hope that you really savor time with your friends and family. It is now that our daughter is 1. My husband is Jewish, and we are doing both Passover and Easter. So that's gonna be fun. It's fun. This is now trying to remember what was really exciting about holidays for me when I was a kid, and being able to create that for my daughter. So if you have any fun ideas for kid stuff for holidays, feel free to send them to us as well. So with that, we hope you have a really, really wonderful, safe weekend, and we will see you next time.